Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into the complex, morally ambiguous journey of one of television's most compelling characters, Saul Goodman from Better Call Saul. For those of you who've been following the series or the Breaking Bad universe, you already know Saul's story is more than just that of a slick-talking criminal lawyer. It's the tale of Jimmy McGill's transformation into Saul Goodman, a story driven by ambition, betrayal, self-deception, and the eternal struggle between integrity and success. In today's video, we'll explore Saul Goodman's rise and fall through the lens of Stoic philosophy. By the end, we'll not only understand where Saul went wrong, but also gain insights we can apply to our own lives. So, whether you're a fan of the show or simply someone looking to navigate the complex world of ambition, morality, and self-control, stay tuned. The seeds of Saul Goodman's downfall were planted long before he ever adopted his flashy alter ego. They trace back to his tumultuous relationship with his older brother, Chuck McGill. Chuck, a brilliant but emotionally cold lawyer, never believed Jimmy was worthy of the law. He saw Jimmy as a con man who would only taint the noble profession. Chuck's disdain for Jimmy was rooted in deep-seated beliefs about character and integrity. Despite Jimmy's attempts to reform, to prove he could be more than just slip-in Jimmy, Chuck was unwavering in his belief that Jimmy was fundamentally incapable of being ethical. As Chuck once brutally put it, "You're not a real lawyer." For Chuck, Jimmy becoming a lawyer was not just an insult, it was a betrayal of everything he valued. From a Stoic perspective, Chuck's rigid adherence to principles might seem virtuous, but it also blinded him to Jimmy's potential for change. Seneca once said, "He who is overly attached to his own views will find it difficult to learn or grow." Chuck's inability to see beyond Jimmy's past mistakes became the wedge that drove them apart. It's this constant dismissal that fueled Jimmy's desire to prove himself, albeit in the wrong ways. As Jimmy transformed into Saul Goodman, we began to see the cracks in his character. Early on, Jimmy genuinely tried to practice law with integrity, but when the legal system continually rejected him, he resorted to shortcuts. The transformation was subtle at first, bending the rules just a little to win cases, making ethically questionable choices to get ahead. And before he knew it, Jimmy was fully immersed in the morally grey world of Saul Goodman. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a stark warning. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Jimmy's transformation into Saul was driven by an insatiable desire for more money, more recognition, more power. Instead of being content with the simple life of a struggling but honest lawyer, he wanted to be on top. And to get there, he was willing to compromise his values. In Stoic terms, Jimmy's downfall began the moment he lost sight of virtue. According to the Stoics, virtue is the highest good. It is better to live a life of integrity, even if it means hardship, than to pursue success through deceit. But Saul Goodman became the antithesis of this belief. He was willing to manipulate, deceive, and even betray those closest to him to achieve his goals. One of the most powerful aspects of Saul's story is his ability to justify every unethical choice he makes. In his mind, he's helping people who would otherwise be crushed by the legal system. He convinces himself that his clients are underdogs, much like he was. But this self-deception becomes his greatest enemy. In his quest to outsmart everyone around him, Saul loses sight of who he truly is. The Stoics warned about the dangers of self-deception. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." For Saul, the suffering he experienced was largely self-inflicted. By justifying every morally questionable decision, he built a web of lies that ultimately ensnared him. The more he tried to control everything around him, the more he lost control of himself. We see this play out in his relationship with Kim Wexler. Initially, she admires Jimmy's resourcefulness and willingness to fight against the odds. But as Saul's actions become more unethical, Kim finds herself torn between loyalty and her own moral compass. The Stoics believed that losing the respect of those closest to us is one of the greatest forms of suffering. Yet Saul is willing to sacrifice even that just to maintain his persona and achieve his goals. How often do we lie to ourselves to justify our actions? The Stoics encourage us to engage in self-reflection, to be brutally honest with ourselves about our motivations and actions. If we don't, we risk losing not just our integrity, but also the people who care about us. Jimmy's relationship with Howard Hamlin is another crucial piece of the puzzle. At first glance, Howard seems like a stereotypical antagonist, an elitist lawyer blocking Jimmy's path. But as the series unfolds, we see a more nuanced character. While Howard was initially complicit in keeping Jimmy out of Hamlin and McGill, it was largely due to Chuck's insistence. Over time, Howard tried to extend an olive branch to Jimmy, offering him genuine opportunities for growth. However, by the time Howard attempted to reconcile with Jimmy, it was already too late. By then, Jimmy had fully embraced the Saul Goodman persona, someone who saw Howard as a symbol of everything that had been denied to him. Instead of seeing Howard's gestures as genuine, Jimmy viewed them as condescension. The Stoics teach that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters, as Epictetus famously said. Unfortunately, Jimmy chose to react with bitterness and spite. The plan to portray Howard as a cocaine addict was a turning point in Jimmy and Kim's descent. It wasn't just about winning their case against Sandpiper. It was about proving they could outsmart and humiliate Howard. Kim, who had always been Jimmy's moral counterbalance, found herself drawn deeper into his world. She justified their actions as a means to an end, but in reality, it was about revenge disguised as justice. This storyline is a cautionary tale about how bitterness can distort our judgment. When we let resentment fester, we risk destroying not just others, but ourselves. The Stoics would warn us to let go of grudges, for the only person we truly harm with our anger is ourselves. The plan to ruin Howard's reputation culminated in a tragedy that neither Jimmy nor Kim could have foreseen: Howard's death at the hands of Lalo Salamanca. This moment marked the definitive end of any remnants of morality in Jimmy and Kim's partnership. The Stoic idea that the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury was completely lost on them. Instead, they allowed their desire for victory and validation to spiral into something that cost an innocent man his life. Kim's reaction to Howard's death is particularly telling. For Kim, who had always tried to balance her love for Jimmy with her own moral code, this was the breaking point. In trying to prove herself to Jimmy, in trying to show that she could be just as cunning and ruthless, she ended up losing everything she once stood for. This was where her own stoic resolve failed. She could no longer reconcile the person she had become with the values she once held dear. For Jimmy, however, the transformation into Saul Goodman was complete. He compartmentalized the guilt, burying it beneath layers of cynicism and bravado. But beneath that mask, he was still haunted by the realization that he had become exactly what Chuck had always feared: a man who would stop at nothing, even if it meant destroying lives to get what he wanted. In the aftermath of Howard's death, Kim makes the heart-wrenching decision to leave Jimmy. For her, staying with him would mean sacrificing what little was left of her integrity. By walking away, she tries to reclaim some semblance of the person she used to be. It's a moment of painful clarity that echoes the Stoic teaching. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. Kim realized that no amount of success was worth losing herself. For Jimmy, however, the departure of Kim solidified his descent into the Saul Goodman persona. By this point, He had lost everything that made him human: his integrity, his relationships, and even his own self-respect. In the end, Saul's story is not one of triumph, but of tragic isolation. In trying to control everything around him, he lost control of the one thing that truly mattered: himself. Mastering yourself versus being ruled by impulses. In the end, Saul Goodman's story is a cautionary tale about what happens when we let our desires and impulses rule us. The Stoics emphasize the importance of self-mastery. As Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Saul's inability to control his ambition and his need for recognition leads him down a path of self-destruction. For Kim, the moment she leaves Jimmy is her way of reclaiming her own self-mastery. She realizes that staying with him would mean sacrificing her own integrity. Unlike Saul, she has the courage to walk away from the toxic cycle they've created, even if it breaks her heart. In the end, Saul is left with nothing but the persona he created. The tragedy is that by the time he realizes what he's lost, it's already too late. His story serves as a stark reminder that no amount of success is worth losing yourself or the people who truly matter. Saul Goodman's journey is a Stoic tragedy, a tale of how unchecked ambition, self-deception, and the pursuit of control can destroy not just a person, but also the relationships they hold dear. In the end, both Saul and Kim teach us valuable lessons: the importance of self-awareness, the value of integrity, and the necessity of surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up rather than drag us down. Questions for you. Do you think Jimmy could have turned things around if he had reconciled with Chuck before it was too late? Was there a point where Kim could have pulled back and saved herself from Saul's influence? How do you think we can avoid the traps of ego and ambition that led to Saul's downfall? Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they were dragging you down? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Saul and Kim's journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, remember, master yourself and you master your destiny.